Hello, everyone. I'm Pooja Sarkar, and welcome to this live session presented by HarperCollins on Mr. Hari Khemka's newly released business memoir, On the Move: My Journey as a Relentless Entrepreneur. Hari Khemka, as you would know, is a business veteran, and also he's built so many businesses over the years that it'll intrigue you while we go into the conversation in some time. And also, he's the owner of CP Plus, the youngest brand to be counted among the top four surveillance brands in the world, and of course, top two in Asia. Now, his book traces his incredible journey from his childhood as he grew up, for his family members, extended family, the businesses that he's run, and of course, and it talks about a lot of things, the learnings that he has had. Not everything is a success, also. So it's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful story from a man, a homegrown guy. Let's hear it from Mr. Kemka on his book. Now, I'll start. Hello and welcome, Mr. Kemka, to the show.
Yeah, hello.
So I would like to start with the fact that you talk about this beautiful story in the beginning of the book about an Englishman and your grandfather. If you could talk about that story to the listeners who are logging in right now.
That is as I was told by my father that my great great grandfather, Sri Ganesh Achi, routinely went for morning walks, where he encountered a senior British officer who used to ride in the same vicinity almost at the same time. They gradually got to greeting each other. The officer would say good morning, to which my great great grandfather would reply Ram Ram. One day, Ganesh Dasji was riding our family's two-horse buggy when he met the English friend who gazed at the carriage, and one of the horses caught his attention. Uh, a few days later, the English officer offered to buy the same horse, uh, for which my great great grandfather had a little embarrassment, as in the Marwadi culture in those days, we do not sell to one's friends. And my great grandfather offered him that I will gift the horse to you, for which the officer was not very comfortable, but ultimately he obliged, and the horse was gifted to him.
Okay.
So that is then the English officer asked him, called him to his office maybe a couple of weeks ago after that, and he said that I am auctioning a huge piece of land near Filmistan Cinema, and you have to come. And once one or two people they offer something, you slightly increase it, and I will say one, two, three. So my great grandfather was he never wanted a piece of land to invest in that area, but the Englishman said, "No, no, you must have to come." And as such, he went there. There were one or two bids, and as soon as two bids were there, he increased the third bid and said a particular amount. Immediately, the hammer fell down. One, two, three, sold to this gentleman. So I was told that there were many people who wanted to pay a much higher amount, but he said कि just like that British Hindi, पहले कहाँ गया था, अब ये बिक गया, अब आप जाइए. So that was not the end. He was told him that many people will offer you a very lucrative price, but उसको बेचना नहीं है. He went to England, and from there he used to send letters taking confirmation that we have not sold the land. So that was a big fortune for the Khemka family. It got divided amongst my great great grandfather's brothers, and then down the line generations. Some land was acquired by the government, some was occupied by some people who migrated from Pakistan. Then the Rani Jhansi Road, the government took some land for building that road. And then one piece of land went in the went to my another great grandfather, Kishan Chandji. So he sold it to the railways, and the railways offered him that in case if we name it after you, then we can reduce the price to that much. So he agreed. He said, you can reduce and name it Kishanganj in my name. So still there is a railway station called Kishanganj under his name. Actually, this particular incident left a deep impression in my memory about the value of relationships and human touch. As a result, I shaped up my entire business journey around maintaining human touch and investing in people, building relationships.
True. I wanted to understand, your family had a traditional money lending business, and once your father said that he does not want to do it, you also decided to wind it up and then start your own things. Why did you decide that, and what is it that you decided to do after that?
Well, actually, our family was the core business of our family was never money lending.
Okay.
They were into primary operations like textiles, and also owned coal mine earlier, and were also part time in steel business.
Okay.
Money lending, I think, maybe because of a Marwadi tradition, that they say that there should be some part of the wealth which should be given on interest, so that whenever you need when you have urgent requirement of funds, you can always call for that. So it was never a major line, and it is, I would say, it was kind of a hobby, which continued down to my father. And when I joined business, there was still some amount which was given on money lending. But actually, I used those connections because of those brokers who do money lending for my business growth. Whatever references I wanted, I used them, and gradually, when the business expanded and the morale of the market got down, all I mean, we already exited the money lending line.
Okay. And we have a question coming in from a listener. Nikita Thapar is asking, please tell us about the book title On the Move. Why did you name, why is the name of the book On the Move? And what does it signify to you?
See, it signifies that one should always be on the move. There should not be any stagnation in your career. So once you diversify into a line, then you should move on to other, provided you get the proper opportunity. So that is why it was key. We should always be on the move. That was what it signifies.
Okay. Now, coming back to the part, you talked about how textile was an important part of the business. You've said in your book over the course of the entire book that you got in and out of the textile business for some 3 times, and finally you decided this is the end of it. How was it growing up and doing the business in your early days when you were 19 years old? And why did you decide that it is time to let go? And of course, you've seen the entire textile industry change over the course of last 2 decades. How did you keep up with those times?
Well, if you are when I joined the family business, textiles was my primary engagement. I tried my level best to expand the business as much as I could, as it was never the intention to move out of textile line. I gradually realized that there was no value addition for us in the textile business. We were mainly buying in cash from the mills and selling on credit. So there was not much which we can do. It was just the market dynamics which operated. And secondly, with my diversification in other businesses, and since my siblings had not joined me by that time, it gradually got phased out. The second entry into textiles was by accident, when my uh, when I used to travel a lot to Taiwan, and my friend in Taipei, he learned that we were into textiles. So he offered me that he knows the top textile people there. One was the Nanya Corporation, which I would say is kind of Reliance of Taipai. So he said that then I was not interested, but he told that you should start this because you know. And when I was in textile business, there were many garment exporters which were small at that time, and then they grew multiple times. So that time it was that if you import some fabric for making garments and re-export, that time there was no duty to be charged. So it somehow it was quite lucrative for the garment exporters to buy the latest fabrics, which probably the other, India or maybe other parts of the world had not seen, which were being developed in Taipei. So I started it, met my old friends, and but sudden then after some time I found that if I go myself to them, only then we can get orders. And if I go, I mean, the garment exporters take some snacks, take some tea, gossiping, and then, and if I send even my top executive, they will not were not able to meet him. So slowly I exited that textile business. That's all about textiles.
True. There is this one question that has come in from someone. Ashwarya Mishra is asking a personal question. Would you rather teach your grandchildren Mundi than send them to a business school?
No, Mundi has become redundant now. I was also not keen to learn it, but then I was so small and I was forced to learn it. So this was the I think after the maybe uh, 70s, even in our line it got redundant. Now everything is computerized. We have ERPs, we have SAP, although. So there's no relevance of Mundi now. And my grandchildren are already in business school. My elder grandson just passed, did his undergraduation from Regent College, London. And after taking some experience, maybe 1 or 2 years, and when the situation eases because of the pandemic, I would send him to USA for his post graduation.
Okay. So basically, please send your children to business school.
Yeah, of course, of course. Even my son, both my sons were in business schools. Like Aditya did his MBA from Ford School of Management, and my younger son Rishi, after doing his graduation from Sriram College of Commerce and from Viganand College, he went to London for specializing in finance in an institute called CIMA, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. So the old thing is, and you have to be pragmatic, you have to change with the times.
True. There is one thing that coming to the next business that is where the whole IT and the solutions that you started is the story, this lovely story that is there in the book where you used to go to Dubai, and we all know when we go to Dubai, it gets very difficult to get work done in the afternoon in the older times at least, and you found it very irritating that you have to spend that 1 hour waiting for people because everybody else was busy in the siesta hour. So, could you tell the listeners and the ones who have joined us on how did you chance upon that entire LG meeting and how did you start this entire diversification into IT and then into the security business?
Well, as you rightly said, from it's not 1 hour, it's actually 3 hours siesta in Dubai. So from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., everybody sleeps. So my friend was there. He was a dealer for LG monitors in UAE. So during afternoon, I always had lunch at his home because he was also a Marwadi, and I don't like eating too outside too much. So then once he said that after lunch, he says, "Do you want to sleep or you want to come with me?" So मैंने कहा, "No, I am not habitual of sleeping during the day." So he says, "Ki I am going to LG office, and they also work straight. They just have half an hour lunch, and then they work till about 5:30 p.m." So I tagged along with him, just being inquisitive that at least I'll meet few people and learn from them. So when we got talking, and then after about 2 3 visits, because I was going to Dubai quite often because of my export of vacuum flasks and import of waste paper and other scraps from there. So after 2 3 visits, then we became quite friendly. Then he asked, "What do you do?" I told him that this is my line of business, and he asked me, "What brings you to Dubai so many times?" So I told him, "Ki this is what I'm doing." Then he said, "Why don't you start computer business in India?" I was surprised. I said, "Ki because normally as a layman, people hear that computers become obsolete very soon." So I expressed my fear to him. He said, "Don't worry, because LG is making mainly two products, color monitors and optical drives." And he said, "For next 10 15 years, this is not going to phase out, rather, it will continue." So I said, "Fine." So we imported the first consignment from Dubai. Uh, India was under Dubai region, and this guy was the regional head for India, UAE, Middle East, all. So we got it, and then we started selling. Then we got some objection from a small liaison office in Delhi of LG Electronics. They said, "Ki from where you got this, and it might be a fake one, and how can you advertise?" Then we showed them the papers thing, and then it started growing. And then we started, then India came under Singapore region. So we started dealing with Singapore. And finally, they say, with our volumes increasing and giving them good business, we started dealing directly with Seoul. So that was, I went to Seoul, I mean, almost once in 40 days. And that's how the business grew.
Okay. Someone is asking this question, which I was going to ask next. Please tell us the CP Plus brand story. How did it become a household name, and what plans for the brand in India in the coming year?
Well, actually, when we did this IT business, which means IT peripherals, we sold products of almost who's who of the world in IT. But then we found that the boom in computers is reducing, and the margins are also coming down. It was just a box moving. Sometimes I found that if to sell a monitor, uh, I mean, a labor who carries it on his head and delivers to someone is making equal amount of money what we are making in after investing and all. So we were doing business with a company called CP Cam in Taiwan. Among all, I mean, we have sold almost every brand in the world for CCTV. You must find in our book. So then we picked up someone who was heading CP Cam. She is an Indian lady from Delhi, and studied there and was working there and fluent in English. And she knew the entire CCTV market of the world. So then we started, and then we deliberated what should be our brand. So we asked CP Cam, "What is the initials of CP?" So they said CP means cost performance, because there was the time when they were using the term "very well made in Taiwan." It was not made in Taiwan, it was very well made in Taiwan to beat the Korean products. So then we said that we decided which brand is name is available in India. And then we said we found that Z Plus and all that was not available. So we decided to make it CP Plus, cost performance plus. At the same cost, you get a plus performance. So which I think we have never emphasized or told anyone that what does CP Plus mean. And when we started marketing, our initial campaign was basically all social messages. One was the ragging, the other one was a maid who's teaching, and the third one was eve teasing. And after that, we approached almost all the top ad agencies, who either MNC or Indian. Mostly they were MNCs. So Dentsu came up with the tagline, "Upar wala sab dekh raha hai." So first we thought ki, I mean, it doesn't. But then when we took the presentation from almost everyone, all the top big names, we found that it was all the run of the mill same things. So then we went to Dentsu, and we waited for some time till the one particular director, he was away to Sri Lanka. So when he came, he shot our three films, and that is how Upar Wala Sab Dekh Raha Hai came into existence. Fortunately, or maybe unknowingly, we found that that was the world's first 360-degree campaign for CCTVs in the world, which we had done.
Okay.
After that, we wanted to take it to the next level, and uh, then we thought that let us have some brand ambassador who can connect with the masses. So then we found, and ultimately we zeroed in on only Salman Khan, because the kind of value he had, nobody was uh, had in the market. And our main idea was to make it the tagline or the brand as a household name, and uh, also the many people uh, in the government who don't know from where to get CCTV and which brand. At least they will come to know that there is a brand called CCTV, which is synonym with our tagline. And if they, if even if they don't know CP Plus, once you tell them Upar wala sab dekh raha hai, they say yes, yes, I have heard. So that gave us an added advantage.
Okay. And what are the plans for the company in the coming years? Because I read in the book you also said that there will be a time when you will look at an IPO and public listing of your companies. So what are the plans ahead?
See, the plans ahead, see, we actually were quite impressed with our Prime Minister's initiatives. One
Mhm.
was Make in India. So we started a plant at Tirupati, uh, I think in 2017, and we got good response. And then I mean, that time nobody thought that there will be a kind of distrust or some negative opinion about China. So
Mhm.
then our that line was very good. Then we put up another plant there, another line, and for that, the then Chief Minister of Andhra, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, he himself came for inauguration. So gradually, when this problem came from say February onwards, we are now at least 80% of our products are manufactured, designed, and the research and development of them is also done in India, which we will slowly increase to 100%, and that too under PM's Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. So
Okay.
that is our plan, to make it a truly Indian brand. And at present also we are selling in many countries, but our aim is that we should produce everything that we need for the country in India.
True. There's one thing that I want to ask because you're nearly half an hour into the conversation, but there's something important that is happening in a lot of the families who are into businesses. You have also seen it, two rounds of family separation of properties and wealth, and you've seen it first with with your father and your uncle, and then you saw it with your own brother. I wanted to understand if you could tell our listeners how do you go through the entire process. Right now, we know that everybody emphasizes on the fact of you should know what you'll be. Succession planning has become a very important keyword these days, but it wasn't really the same a decade back or even 2 decades back. But how did you deal with these situations both times? What did you do differently, and how are you preparing your children for the future?
See, families are the core of Marwadi traditions. Marwadi businesses are grown from within the family and are expanded together. there has to be a proper succession planning, as eventually businesses are split so as to avoid any conflict amongst the future generations. When we separated with my uncle, that time I was just 19 years old, and that time there was no clear defined succession planning. So my father and my uncle, there were only two people who were in business. So that time the existing business and the existing offices were divided amongst them. uh, Actually, these whatever you say, that these divisions are a bit painful initially and may even cause some bitterness, but in due course things normalize, as nothing is thicker than blood. Moreover, I would say that family is not a bad word. I would say that about more than 80% of top big businesses in US are family owned. The same number, about 80%, are owned in China. And in Europe, I would say 60% of the businesses are family owned. So, I mean, it is a proven fact that family-owned businesses, they grow and prosper. Even with my sons, I have made two separate verticals. One is CCTV and IT. The other is media entertainment, professional audio, softwares, education. So both are looking after their lines, and they both are looking forward to grow the lines. The But of course, we sit together, we discuss ourselves, and take joint decisions. This, I would say, is kind of a succession planning that I have thought.
Okay. There's a question that is coming from someone. The book ends with you now spending time on golf and philanthropy. If an opportunity comes now for a new business venture, would you get back into action again?
See, it's not that I am not doing anything except philanthropy and golf. So I am still very active in business. I spend 8 9 hours in office every day, and I guide my children, guide my staff, and of course, now since philanthropy is in Marwadi tradition, now actually people, as per government, there should be a 2% CSR. But Marwadis were doing social work and philanthropy when the world had never heard of 2% CSR. So we are always in philanthropy, which is a marvel. You see Birlas, Tata, all, I mean, not Tatas, Birlas, uh, Goenkas, Podars, everybody, they have colleges, they have schools, they have temples. So I feel that now the temples are not that important. And we should I feel that India needs more in education and healthcare. So we are trying to work on these two. Moreover, I do a lot of other social works. Like I am the president of Khemka Development Trust, which owns Khemka International School in Rajasthan. There, as an initiative, we are doing 50% reduction for girl students under Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. So in Rajasthan, Rajasthan, not even Rajasthan, everywhere, the girls were always neglected. So we are giving them a 50% discount in fees, so as to encourage them to come forward and study. Then I am also president of Marwadi Charitable Trust in Delhi, which is a very old trust founded by maybe my forefathers as one of the trustees in the walled city. Here we run a primary school, a senior secondary school, a hospital, and a charitable library. This library is kind of a heritage because uh, even Mahatma Gandhi, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, and many people have come there to study the books which we have there with us. So
Okay.
now golf was actually accidentally because we were discussing with a friend of mine. He's himself an industrialist, and he said, "Ki Kemkaji, what are you doing for yourself?" So I thought that, I mean, why is he asking this? I said, I am doing business. Business is flourishing. I have a loving family. My children are looking after the business. He said, no, no, that's all right. But what are you doing for yourself? So after talking to him, I started playing golf, and that is just a hobby. But still, I am actively involved in business. And if any opportunity comes, which was my mantra throughout my life, that uh, I would never let it go, because if any opportunity comes, you should uh, examine it, study it, see the viability, and should go if you have the means and the time. So if something comes, of course, there is nothing I am retired from business or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, I'm going to take the last question here that has come from someone. And you answered half of it, but let me take the rest half. Also, as Mr. Khemka has varied experience in so many business verticals, what will be his advice for next generation leaders and who are initial years of their entrepreneurial journey? And I also I personally wanted to ask you, do you also invest in these startups? Do you also have a family office which invests in the newer entrepreneurs around?
Well, see, you have to be very careful in taking investment for startups or any business line, because now I have found that most of these startups, they get funding and they just blow it on advertising without calculating that are they making some profits or not. So what they are doing, their valuation increases, they become unicorn, but at the bottom, I mean, they are always in losses. You see many of these companies who have got funding and their market valuation is very high, but still they are in losses. So what they do, that after some time they sell a fraction of their holding, and all the losses are covered. I don't believe in that thing. You should always aim to have your uh, uh, project viable. Maybe not now, after 2 years, 3 years down the line, it should be viable, not just going by market valuation. And to the new people, I would say, don't be lured by these startups, because of course you should do startups, but don't be lured that most of these startups have become so big. So normally, I would there are statistics that 97% of the startups, they just vanish. It's only 3% that come to us, and maybe not now, but so I mean, you should always have a firm footing for your business, even if you get some funding. Funding can be for expansion, not for just blowing the money on advertisements.
True. Thank you so much, Mr. Kemka, for your time today, and I wish you all the best with your book. It was a lovely read, and I hope a lot of other people can read the book too.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the readers also asked very nice questions, so I thank them for their the questions that they asked.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for your time today. Take care.
Yeah, bye.